Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. It's the Daily Show. James Herrick. On the other side, we got Jeremiah. How we doing?
Hey, all good. I mean, it's the start of my favorite month of the year, my favorite time of the year. It's May. Baseball's in full swing. Not even just in a sporting sense. It's more just like a lot of stuff just away from like the court and the field and stuff. May is just it's a beautiful time of like weather this time of year and all
Mm-hmm.
that. So May is my favorite month, not excluding the fact that it's my birthday month too. But
Hey.
May has a special place in my heart regardless of that fact. So I got up a little like a little bit more energy, and I feel like it's just because of the turn of the new month. So I'm excited for May. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. How April closed out, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'm good, feeling good.
Yeah. And to your point, it is great when the weather finally starts getting nice. Because for me,
Exactly.
May's the month where, hey, we're really turning a corner here on the weather. So that's always, yeah, I think you're right on that. May is a solid month. I'm with you.
I can't wait to just be able to get out the house just in shorts and a t-shirt
Yep.
again, and like
Yep.
you know what I mean. So
Yeah, and as far as sports talk, the number one thing in sports right now is the NBA playoffs right now, and some big games last night. And we'll start with the bigger game. I think the Game 7, Warriors and Kings. Give me your thoughts here. This was a pretty good game, and then we got Golden State started to pull ahead there at the end. But give me your thoughts.
the first half was exactly what a game seven I feel is always what people anticipate it to be.
Yeah.
And you had guys on both sides hitting big shots. You had I believe it was Mitchell or Davis on the King side for like the first half hitting a lot, like hitting a good 3 or 4 threes in that first half. And you had Sabonis even doing like I know we were talking about him, he was doing his thing a little bit
Hmm.
and like kind of becoming a more of a presence in the paint. And I was looking back, like I watched from halftime on. Really, I watched bits and pieces of the first half, and then watched most of the second half until Golden State started pulling away. But it just seemed like in that first half it was competitive, very competitive, and then the third quarter, Kevon Looney he had just started just snagging boards. He ended the game with like 21 rebounds, and like
Hmm.
everybody else in the Kings, I know like Sabonis only had like 6 to 8, I don't remember, but pretty
Yeah.
much started taking over the game in that third quarter, which was Golden State's kind of like their calling card for a bit, you know. So it just sucked seeing that and then they just came out the Kings so flat-footed in the start of the fourth quarter. And it just sucks because you have De'Aaron Fox. He won the inaugural Clutch Player of the Year award, and then I don't believe he scored after the third quarter. I think he didn't score at all during the fourth. So that's a bad look, but also it's a testament that like that team is still young. It's the first time they've been back in the playoffs in forever. And Golden State, I mean, hey, shame on me for betting against Golden State, but hey, it was a game seven. You think that Sacramento had the momentum, but then now we're back doing a rewind of the 2016 final. Actually, no, not really 2016, but pretty much revisiting the old LeBron versus Golden State rivalry with the Lakers now.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought that was a really good game. And as far as like the Warriors go, if you let the Warriors, first of all, if Curry gets hot, you're in trouble. And he was hot. So that's first and foremost, that is a problem. And then secondly, if you're letting him grab offensive boards like that, then that just gives him free reign just to absolutely pull up. It's like Clay was absolutely shooting. Clay was firing from anywhere on the court, and he was not making shots. And the Warriors were not getting punished for it because they were getting so many offensive boards. And it's like, I don't want to say it's luck, right? But I think there's an element of like getting a good bounce where the one possession like that, I feel like is they missed a shot, and then Wiggins comes in for the putback slam, and he basically slams it off the rim, and the ball bounces up and right into Curry's arms. I feel like, I don't want to say it's luck because they played great throughout the whole game. So it's not luck, but it is that sense of like, oh, we're getting beat on the 50-50s. The Warriors are getting every 50-50. And every time there's like a close bounce or something that goes one team's way, felt like it just kept going the Warriors' way. And they were continuously getting momentum that way too. So,
Yeah, just bringing up the box score
yeah.
for some of it just to get a better gauge. But yeah, it's just like just talking about again like that first half, those guys like and Steph Curry, like I can't count out the Warriors until some like because the crazy thing is their formula is that like if Steph isn't going, then like it starts like and I know I keep using this saying a lot, but Steph is just like he is Golden State now. It's not uh, Clay, Steph, and Draymond really. It's more you got Clay now. He's the top tier. Like not Clay, Steph. If Steph isn't on his game, then it's detrimental to everybody else on that team.
Mhm.
And when they won the finals, there was guys like Andrew Wiggins, and you had Gary Payton, and those guys were actually stepping up with Steph also taking his game to another level. So I feel like it all starts with you stopping Steph Curry. If you can stop Steph Curry, then that's when things start getting more into your favor. So until I see a team actually do that, it's kind of hard to count Golden State out. Like to not even make another conference finals appearance. But it's just with Steph playing, it just keeps building his case as maybe like the best point guard of this generation and eventually the best point guard of all time. But like it's just seeing him that was a Steph Curry masterclass.
Mhm.
And that's exactly like the kind of championship that's how championship teams or championship players win series, and they just rip your heart out. And especially when like they were starting to have Sacramento back on their heels, especially with the start of that fourth quarter, it was just depressing that how quiet that arena was. And then you had Steph, he hit I forget on who, but he had a step back that could have been a foul to be honest, but I forget, it was like at the top of the start of the quarter, something like that, when they started pulling away. I think it was either got up 14 or 17. And then when I saw Steph hit that, I was like, okay, this game's over. So I cut the game off after that. And then it's just crazy to see like the discrepancy of just it didn't feel like a game 7 anymore once like the
Yeah.
third and fourth quarter started turning around. So
Yeah, and to that point of like it being like kind of tiers almost, where Curry's the first tier, and then that kind of trickles down into like Clay and Draymond and Poole and these other guys, Wiggins. They never really got past that first tier. Like Curry played outstanding, but the other players did not step up. Clay made some clutch shots. Clay made a corner three when they were starting to pull ahead. That gave him some momentum. So Clay hit some clutch shots, but he didn't really play great as like a whole, right? He didn't shoot well from the field. Jordan Poole did pretty much nothing. Wiggins didn't really play great. So aside from Curry and like getting the offensive rebounds, whether that was mostly Looney, a couple other guys chipped in on occasion, but they never really got past that first tier. And I think that goes to show just how good Curry is, because even when the guys around him are not playing to the level you need them to, he still steps up and gets 50 and ended up winning by 20 points. So I think that just goes to show how tough that team is to beat. And, also it's like he was hitting the three and then they were guarding him like so close at the line, and he was just beating them off the dribble all night. Like he would beat them off the dribble and get a free lane to the hoop. The one where he made the underhanded like little layup between two dudes and got the and one, that was crazy. When shots like that are falling, you're not going to beat the Warriors. So I mean, I don't think the Kings really played great either, just because it's like they made so many mistakes. Like Clay got an and 1 3, and they were making mistakes, and they weren't doing anything on the glass. And I don't think they're purely outskilled. It's like they can grab rebounds, but they were getting out efforted all night long, which you cannot afford to let that happen in a game 7.
yeah, just something I saw on Twitter with just the discussion of Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes had himself a rough series, especially
Mm-hmm.
when he missed that a shot that put him up 3-1. And I was talking to Matt about this the other day. I'm like, just crazy how the tide changes just on that one shot. They went from almost being up 3-1 to to getting blown out technically in game 7.
Mm-hmm.
And he only had 4 points, and that seemed to be a recurring theme for him in game 7 situations. I believe his best game in a game 7, because I believe he played 4 or 5. I think like the best he'd done was get like 8 points or something like that. Like it just sucks. And then like I said before with De'Aaron, it just seemed like you just look on the offensive production going around, and it's like these guys were just trying to, in the fourth quarter anyway, they were just trying to get those shots up to try to build some momentum again. But it just seemed like it was like all the momentum was just sapped out of them, and it was just like that's when Golden State really started pulling away. And it's just, yeah, like literally when you have Steph hitting those kinds of shots and and it's really nothing you can do about it, especially on offense, it gets more and more demoralizing. Believe me, I saw when I was
Mhm.
watching in the finals last year, I know exactly how that those fans were feeling, especially having to wait nearly 20 years to be able to finally get back to that point. But but I mean, hey, it's more of a testament to the greatness of Steph Curry and the championship DNA that has been built in Golden State. But yeah, I think the Kings will be back next year though.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess some of my final things on like the game itself, like just looking at this stat sheet, like look at those rebound numbers. Those rebound numbers are absolutely terrible. I think I can't really see it that well, but what Keegan Murray lead with 7? Oh no,
It looked, yeah, Murray with 7, but then the crazy thing is Sabonis, your big man, has 8, but then you have Herter and Monk that both
yeah,
grab 9. But then you look on the other side, and then just it was mainly just the third quarter when it came to just the
yeah,
rebounding battle, and you can't allow Kevon Looney to get that many offensive rebounds. I don't think it can tell me how many offensive rebounds he grabbed here,
yeah,
but it's just you. Even if you don't know the exact number, you can see during that third quarter that he was just messing them up on the offensive glass. And that obviously led to second chance points and just more possessions. So that's another thing that, like, just what Matt said last week again, like rebounding wins championships. And
hmm
this was a prime example of, or rebounding wins games as well. So
yeah,
it just, I don't think that you're going to see something that crazy when it comes to them playing the Lakers, because like I don't think Anthony Davis is going to allow that if he has anything to say about it. But
hmm
yeah, you just can't allow like that kind of rebounding dominance from a player on the other side and still anticipate to win the game.
yeah. I know he had at least 10 offensive boards, so that in itself is crazy.
Crazy.
Now the other thing is I'd love to know how bad Fox is hurt because I know he's playing through that finger injury, and I wonder how bad that hurt him. And if that took a little bit out of his game, that's probably something we'll never know. But that is something that I am just kind of interested in myself. But to something you said earlier, when you said the Kings will be back, I 100% agree, and I think they probably could have won a series this year. I just think they got a really bad draw, right? If you're a 3 seed and you're getting told you get to go play the Warriors, like that's not it's like, oh, you feel like the 6 seed even though you have home field advantage.
Yeah.
So I think there's other teams they could have beat, right? I think if you put them in a series with the Grizzlies, I think they have a chance, right? I think if you put them in a series with the Lakers, I think they have a chance. I think there's a couple other teams in the West where, Clippers, they probably have a chance. I think there's some other teams you match them up with, they're probably winning a series, but it just wasn't to be at or against Golden State.
Yeah, it's just like literally just luck of the draw for a lot of these guys and what you said. And the crazy thing now is that I realized yesterday when those games were concluding is that now there's a each seed has some sort of representation in the second round. So you have first seeded Nuggets, second seeded Celtics, you have the Sixers who were the what? Yeah, Sixers were the 3 seed. Then you have, I believe, fourth seeded Suns, fifth seeded Knicks, sixth seed. Oh my goodness, who's the sixth seed?
Warriors,
Warrior. Yep, thank you. Then you have seven seeded. My God, I know you have
Lakers,
Miami at 8, and then you have
Lakers.
Lakers. See, thank you. See
We
that.
put it. We put that together. We put that together. We got that. You
Yeah,
were killing it at the start there. I was like, oh man, he's gonna run through all of these.
I was like, I can't believe I forgot about the Lakers. So like, but yeah, like I just want to start diving into just like the second round matchup. I
Yeah,
mean, besides or even the other game that went on the other day with the Denver and Phoenix and Jamal Murray, man. Jamal Murray is a bad man. He's a bad man.
yeah. I mean, as far as that game goes, right? That is a prime example of like we talked about this last week to a point. I don't remember what team we were talking about, but we were talking about when you let the team's second best player get hot. And the difference between like when it's just a star player and then when that second best player gets hot, whether that and for the Nuggets that is Jamal Murray, and man did he get hot. He got hot, and that's a tough team to beat. I mean, when Murray's playing well and Jokic is Jokic, and if you can get Michael Porter Jr. playing well, I like a lot of players on this Nugget team, and I was on with Jerry Walker, and I picked them to win this in 7. You know, I may be wrong. I may be wrong, but I like this Nuggets team. I don't necessarily, not saying they win the chip or anything, but this is a team that I like. I like a lot of these players. Jamal Murray. Um, so Trey in the chat chiming in. Suns guaranteed victory tonight. Um, I probably will take the Suns tonight because I think this series will be close. I wouldn't be surprised if we see these two teams trade back and forth, 1-1, 1-1, going back and forth. So, but yeah, I like this Nuggets team. I'm not saying they're NBA, finals lock or anything like that, but I do like them in this series here.
No, yeah, I can 100% buy the Nuggets going far because it's just like, all right, we look at Phoenix and there's such a offensive powerhouse now. When you have even look at KD, he had himself 29 points. You had Booker who was putting in that work, and then everybody else was kind of stagnant. Like I know DeAndre Ayton could have himself a better game.
Mm-hmm.
No, Chris Paul could have had himself a way better game as well. And you kind of see with Jamal just looking on the other side. Jamal had 34, and Chris Paul was just furious. I believe sometime in the second half when he tried to check Jamal a little bit. But the thing about the Nuggets team, they're such a well-oiled machine. These guys have been playing together for years. Obviously, they caught a bad break last year with Jamal still rehabbing, I believe, his knee injury, and then Michael Porter Jr. who was out, and they were going up against Golden State. Funny enough, and those guys get bounced out in the first round. Now that those guys are at full strength, you have a Phoenix Suns team that knows how good they can be, but it's about putting it together, being able to, and still, again, they're such a great offensive team. How is it going to look like defensively? And we saw a lot of that. If you have Chris Paul, who's on the wrong side of 30 and trying to check Jamal Murray for a 7-game series, I'm taking Jamal Murray to torch Chris Paul. And it just sucks to say that because I've known how good Chris Paul can be in the playoffs, but it's just, I'm still waiting to see how age is going to catch up with him. But also seeing and going with Trey, I do feel that this series is going 6 or 7 games, and the Suns are just they're going to have games where those guys are just unstoppable. Like that whole team can just be raining down threes and Kevin Durant with the ball in his hands, Devin Booker with the ball in his hands can cause a lot of problems for that Denver Nuggets team. And it's not to say that because I had Denver when I was doing the bracket challenge with McGinnis, I had Denver making it all the way to the finals. Mm-hmm. So, but also I had them beating the Kings in the conference finals. So take my opinion with a grain of salt at this point. But yeah, I really do like Denver in this series though, because my reasoning for it before was that it could be that Phoenix may not have it all figured out yet, and I feel like that's just going back to your point about when Kings were getting matched up with Golden State. It may just be more of a matter of the luck of the draw. But also, as you get deeper into the playoffs, you're going to have to really dig deep to be able to overcome a lot of these good teams. And I feel that the Western Conference champions come out of this round, whether it's Phoenix or Denver. But again, you got to take my opinion with a grain of salt. But I do really like the Nuggets here, and I feel they will be the ones to take it out in 7.
Yeah. As far as the winner of this series winning the West, I can buy into that. But I'm not 100% bullish on it just because I just watched Steph Curry drop 50. So I don't think that Warriors team. I know we just talked about the Warriors for 15 minutes almost. So I don't want to go too in depth here. But that Warriors team is flawed outside of Steph Curry to a larger extent than it was last year. And to a larger extent than it was in previous years. So I don't necessarily think they're a lock or anything like that. But as far as this series goes, I think it will honestly come down to chemistry and to an extent where KD just simply doesn't have that many games under his belt with the Suns. He's played great with them. And I don't think it's a Durant thing, right? I don't think KD, needs these games under his belt to ensure that he plays well in a series. But I do think, some of these role players who aren't used to playing with Kevin Durant need to get a better feel of, all right, when do I attack? When is it time for me to come in and make an impact? When is it time to defer to KD? How often are we still going to Booker? So I think it's more the role players getting a feel of playing with these stars than it is the stars playing together, which when you're playing a lot of minutes, it shouldn't be a big deal. And to your point about defense, right? This is an offensive minded team that probably can do a little bit better on the defensive end of the floor. But it's weird because I like some of the pieces they have defensively. Like Josh Okogie's a good defensive player, but they just don't seem to play. Um, if I had to guess, I'd say Bismack Biyombo never learns how to catch, but that's just my guess there. Yeah. So defensively, they've got some flaws, but I do like some of the individual pieces, which makes it kind of a weird give and take there.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much it's like when I was talking about Denver, like you pretty much made my case for Denver just like a lot more just simplified it the best way that you could, and I appreciate that, and kind of so I don't go on a huge ramble. But I just feel that Jokic and versus Aiton, I feel like that's like the Joker is gonna have himself a series, and obviously like the Denver Nuggets may not be the fun choice to pick for a Western Conference champion potentially, but those guys are just such just looking at the Joker and just the way he's able just to play the game of basketball. He's a two-time MVP for a reason. And just be able to get other guys involved. I remember I don't watch a whole lot of what's going on, man. How you doing, man? I hope when I was watching Denver Nuggets games over the course of this postseason, and even the game versus the Suns the other night, and the way that he just goes about seeing the floor, it's like it's not fun basketball to watch, but it's beautiful basketball to watch, if that makes sense. It reminds me of obviously not comparing them as a team to the Spurs of like a decade ago, but in terms of like ball movement and how he goes about getting other guys involved and passing a good shot for a great shot, I feel that's going to be the killer for Phoenix. And it's not to say that Phoenix isn't going to give Denver a run for its money.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think this series will ultimately be close. But I do agree with your point of Jokic and Aiton being a key back and forth or a key matchup here. I think once again the point you made earlier about Chris Paul trying to guard Jamal Murray, and I'm with you too also on that. I not only do I think that'll be a struggle for him over the course of 7 games, I have a hard time seeing it get any better. So I think they need to play with that matchup. Whether that be, I don't want to say play Chris Paul less, because but you need to figure out something. You don't want to bring on doubles either. That's going to be a tough way to navigate, because if you move Chris Paul onto somebody else, then you just have a different matchup problem. I also don't like saying that because I do like Chris Paul. But I'm with you in terms of him slowing down as he gets older here. So go ahead.
Yeah, and also just seeing, it's also frustrating for me seeing guys like Terrence Ross and like some of those guys that signed with like contending teams off the buyout market, thinking those guys are going to get some run, and how everybody's talking them up like, oh, this guy would be such a great addition to the Aaron Gordon won't have another good shooting performance like that the rest of the series. Not worried.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, but I think the counter to that is that Aaron Gordon had whatever. So Aaron Gordon had, let's see, 11 and shot really well. Or excuse me, Aaron Gordon had 23, shot really well. Porter only had 11, did not shoot very well. So I think the problem will be those two are gonna flip. So Aaron Gordon got hot. I think Porter's gonna eventually get hot, and that'll be the problem as far as the 3-point range goes.
Oh yeah, I mean, like again, like I'm not worried that Phoenix isn't gonna figure it out. It's just, is it gonna be like, it's just gonna be a test of how, like, can they figure it out in time before like it's too late. Like because I still feel like what I figure out is too late is that they blow it up, and well, not blow it up in Game 7, but just like they allow certain games, because I don't think it's going to be teams winning on their home floor. I feel like they're going to trade wins on the road. So hence to Trey's guarantee of Phoenix taking one tonight. But I just feel like it's just going to be too much to overcome, at least in terms of this season. But again, I've been wrong before. I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix could make a run to the finals. Absolutely, if they get it figured out and these guys start clicking. But but yeah, just to kind of like just my closing remarks on it, I feel that Denver is probably going to be too much for Phoenix, and that's why. And I'm still looking forward. This is probably like one of my more intriguing series to watch.
Trey did have a good point. Someone needs to slap Aiton and tell him he should be better.
Trey,
Which
I think we've been
that's a good point.
we've been saying this for ages for him. Like if he wants to take that next step, he has to kind of find that next level and get more aggressive. He has to get a lot angry. But I don't know if he's that kind of player. I'm not sure if he's that kind of player. He may have the potential to be, absolutely, but until he actually starts showing it and why he was the number 1 overall pick and why he should be getting paid a big time contract, and there was a reason he wanted to leave the Suns in the first place. But I just don't think he's that guy, and I'm still sitting here waiting for him to have one of those games where he's like, "Hey, I'm here now," and you got like he wants a max contract, he wants a good contract. I need to see him have a postseason game like he feels like he deserves one.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. And I also agree with what Matt said in the chat about Aaron Gordon getting in 10 to 15 and taking advantage of smaller matchups too. Yeah, that's another good point on 8 in there as well. And I guess the last thing that I'll throw out here is I also like the Nuggets, but I don't want to fall in this trap of explaining why I think the Nuggets win the series and then making it seem like I don't think Phoenix has any chance, or I'm saying the Nuggets are a lock. I think this is going to be a close series, but I lean Nuggets, right? I explain why I think the Nuggets are going to win, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm 100% all taking the Nuggets.
It could come to a matter of certain shots not going in or going in.
Yeah, I do think it'll be a close series, but I agree with you that the Nuggets will edge it out here. And then kind of moving forward, the other Western Conference game, and we talked about Golden State earlier, but we've got Golden State versus the Lakers, and this in itself, I think, will be an interesting matchup. So first of all, are you interested to see LeBron and Curry run it back? Are you tired of the matchup? Are you happy we're getting what seems to be one more? Everyone's saying, oh, it's one more. But I wouldn't be surprised if these two find a way to see each other again in the playoffs. But in short, are you happy to see this matchup, or are you still tired of it?
For just being like becoming a fan of basketball, maybe the season before like Golden State's run of dominance, I believe, because I started falling in love with the game of basketball around, I think the year that Golden State won the championship. So it was around that year, around 2015. And then pretty much having a bulk of my time as an NBA fan being LeBron versus Golden State, or Cleveland versus Golden State, LeBron going to the finals 8 straight years. I could say for my perspective, I was sick of it during the time, and then now we have a couple of years, and I feel like it's great for the NBA because those games are going to be can't miss, and it's different playing fields now. So you got a lot of all these guys are a little bit older. You got Kevin Durant's no longer with Steph Curry. Golden State isn't the same team that they were those years ago, but also saying I wouldn't say LeBron isn't the same player that he was years ago back then too. I would say he has obviously he has a better co-star in Anthony Davis. When Anthony Davis is healthy, he's better. He's the best teammate that LeBron has ever had. And I'm saying that from the what he offers to LeBron as a co-star. So like that's a whole different discussion there. So for the NBA, it's great. For me, I guess I'm intrigued to see how it is this time around. I can't say with the utmost confidence who's winning this series because I feel like I'll have a better understanding of it, maybe closer to tip off. But it's just like it's great for the NBA. I feel this series is still the notion that the old heads are still running the league, because you had the Grizzlies that couldn't beat the Lakers in LeBron in year 20. You had the Kings who couldn't edge it out against the Warriors and Steph Curry. It's still like until these guys, and even last year with Steph beating the Celtics, young like a Celtics team with a couple of young superstars. at that point, it's like we're not just passing the torch. You guys got these young guys and these young teams have to come and take it from them.
Hmm.
So that's what that series signifies to me, because even all these years later, we're getting that matchup again. That means these young teams have to really start to hone in. And it's like, you guys want that mantle of like the next best player and the next big thing. You got to come and take it.
Yeah, and I think that was a sentiment of that Kings Warriors series too, where their head coach was like, "Hey, if you want to win this series, you have to take it from them. You can't try out pointing them. You have to go out there and take it from them." And they didn't do that. But I think this is good for the league as well. I'm sure that this will probably be a in terms of, in comparison to other second round series. I'm sure this will want to be one of the higher views second round series in a while. With that being said, I do like this matchup, and I enjoy that it's not a championship matchup. Right? It'd be a little bit of a different discussion if we were seeing this in the finals, but we're seeing it in the second round. So I think that takes some of the sting of, oh, we've already seen this however many times. I think that takes some of the sting out of it, that it's a second round matchup rather than a finals matchup. And we've got the gap in between. And to your point, these guys are in a lot of different situations where LeBron's on a whole different team and he's got a whole different co-star in Anthony Davis. A lot of new faces. The Warriors are kind of depending on some younger guys to an extent, but they're certainly not in the same spot they were. And I think this matchup is going to be really interesting, and I'm interested to see how Anthony Davis plays, right? I do think he will be probably the key factor in this series for me, in the sense that if the Warriors get in a shooting slump, is Anthony Davis going to get the rebounds? Is Anthony Davis going to defend the paint well enough to prevent the from the Warriors really getting it going in the paint? Yeah, I pretty much agree with what Matt said there. Leaning Warriors in 7. Also, anytime the Warriors are in a playoff series, and I don't really have like a firm grasp of how I think the series is going to go, I always
Just
that's my go-to. I'll lean Warriors in 7. But yeah, I do think that in a 7-game series. Well, I'm talking myself back and forth here, but it's going to be interesting to see how this matchup plays out because LeBron has played this team so many times that I think they might have a leg up in terms of game planning on how to beat them that some other teams don't have. So maybe they get off to a little bit of a better start. Lakers are also the rested team. They've got a couple of days of rest under their belt. Warriors are turning it around after going 7. And Curry's playing a lot of minutes there. So, man, I'm going back and forth here a lot. I do still lean Warriors in 7, but if someone wanted to talk me into a Lakers win, I would not really argue with them too much.
it's crazy because there's been like the notion, oh, you can't bet against LeBron James. Now you can't bet against Steph Curry. So who do you go with? So I feel like it's a testament of just like is Steph, because people love making the argument that Steph should have a case for being one of the greatest of all time. And I feel that's going to be a motivating factor for LeBron, because I feel LeBron wants at least one more championship,
Mm-hmm.
if he has anything to say about it. And I feel, especially with the Lakers, like I feel like he wants to prove, even though he said like the 2020 championship may have been like the hardest one to obtain, but I feel like he wants to. I believe he's had 4 or 5 championships now, because I know he won the 2 in I believe he's at 4, because he won one with the Lakers, one with Cleveland, and the 2 in Miami. So I feel like he's trying to at least get up to that 5-6 mark before his career is done.
Mm-hmm.
And at least for me, um, the Warriors aren't the Grizzlies with the experience in shooting, but the Lakers also aren't the Kings. See,
Lakers very good defensively, which is
oh
going
yeah,
to be a big factor here. Not only AD in the paint, but they have gotten a lot better on the perimeter, which may not affect Curry, but it will affect guys like Clay. But I don't think Clay is as good as finding his own shot at this point in his career. It's going to really affect guys like Poole anytime they need to move away. It's going to affect guys like Peyton coming off the bench. So I definitely agree with Matt's point on the Lakers defense.
no, absolutely. The way I would talk myself into a Lakers win and have them advance to the conference finals is just for the potential of a LeBron versus Kevin Durant matchup that they've been robbing us of for like the last 2 or 3 seasons, or maybe even longer than that. So But I again just to see that I feel like on the defensive end, like to Matt and yours point, that defense could really cause problems for the Warriors, but also Steph could easily be like, even if Steph has somewhat of an off shooting night, that could be like the catalyst for some of these other guys to kind of step up, like Andrew Wiggins.
Hmm.
I feel like he showed me something last postseason, and just seeing how like the rest of these guys go, but applying just seeing how they are with that added pressure of, say, Steph isn't on more, they're honing on Steph, so it's up to these other guys to have to make plays, and it really is going to challenge who has the better championship DNA
Yeah.
to figure out who's going to win.
Yeah, and I love your point about Wiggins because last year during the finals he played so well. Not only did he what he did offensively, it was almost like they had like the explosive like 3-point shooting guys, right? Obviously they always do. But Wiggins did a really good job in the mid range, and he did a really good job of making like Tatum and Brown work anytime he was matched up with them. So those guys never had a break, and I think that affected them on the offensive side. And I think that is something that I'd like to see from him again. Probably won't see that same exact matchup, right? He won't be on LeBron, or LeBron won't be guarding him for the majority of this series. So I don't think that'll necessarily be, the same matchup, but to the point where I do agree that he needs to play better, in the sense that if someone has an off night, instead of relying on the guards, the backup guards, you rely on your starting wing, which is a much better formula to finding success. Now, the other thing here is I think um, LeBron is a lot more rested, right? LeBron has not had to shoulder a load offensively, which I think really helps not only their longevity in the playoffs, but I think LeBron's ability to, say, all right, this is the game where we need me to absolutely go off if we want to win this game. I think that game is easier to obtain when it's not every single game. Because I don't think he dropped 30 once in the first round. You had guys like AD, Reeves, D'Angelo Russell had a nice game. So it's like all these other players on the Laker roster are having good enough games to where LeBron doesn't have to shoulder the load as much, which I think is a big positive for that team as well.
Yeah, I feel most definitely like I'm leading just for the sake of argument to go with the Lakers to go to the conference finals. And I know I said there's a reason why like certain teams are at the seeds that they're at because of just how things were in the regular season. It's not always going to say like, oh, how they're going to perform in the playoffs. But yeah, I'm definitely looking at Anthony Davis to see like can he go up another gear. He was a defensive monster against the Grizzlies, but I want him to take that step forward because the reason the Lakers and LeBron wanted him there is so he can kind of start taking up the mantle of being the best player on the team, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's like him being the number one in production, but it's still like LeBron's team if that makes sense. But I'm very much looking forward to see how Anthony Davis plays in this series against Golden State because I feel like he will have an absolutely monstrous series.
Yeah, and not only for this series, but the remainder of the playoffs, if they're able to win, I think this could be a big kind of legacy defining series or postseason in a way for Davis, where you're right, they wanted him to come in and kind of make that become his team. Um, and we'll see if they're able to do it.
Yeah, Matt, that's a great
Yeah,
point about pacing and just seeing how it's going to take a toll on those guys. So like I didn't really even take that into account. So that's why like this series in particular is going to be like once we start getting into like deeper and deeper in the playoffs, it makes like deciding and predicting these series so much harder.
yeah, that's a really good point too. And it's also in the extent where Um, it's like so the Kings are a team that, they're not an outstanding defensive team, but they do give a lot of effort and they're a young team who can afford to kind of chase all the movement and put in that effort on the defensive side of the court. And as good as the Lakers have been defensively, that they are older. so that movement may hurt them. Interested to see. I'm interested to see if LeBron is matched up on Draymond, and then how they decide to utilize Draymond's screens if that's the matchup. I think that could end up being pretty interesting. But yeah, also shout out to Matt, because Matt knows so much about basketball. It's crazy. It's crazy how much Matt knows about basketball.
The
So
resident
shout out, Matt.
NBA analyst. He's the guy to go to.
He's the man.
Matt, if you're interested in hopping in for the talk about Miami and Knicks, then be sure to hit us up in Slack or something. We'll get you in here.
Yeah. Do you want to head over to that series right now, or do you have anything that you want to touch
I would
on this
say,
Lakers Warriors series?
I guess like my lasting thing is that we're in for probably like maybe the most fun series of the entire second round. But wait, I can't wait, hold on. So did Herrick try to give Diamond another raise to lead the basketball team?
I didn't say all that. That's not up to me. All I said was Matt definitely knows his basketball. That's all I'm saying. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. No, but I'm all good with talking about this series. We're in for a fun one for sure.
Yeah. And then as far as that Heat and Knicks series goes, Heat got themselves a win, and I fell in the trap of doubting the Knicks. Doubting the Heat. I don't know about you, but heading into the series, I was basically like, yeah, I really like this Heat team. You know, they can play well, they can get hot. Anytime Jimmy's playing well, they can win a series. And then I was like, yeah, but I still think the Knicks are gonna win this one out. And then the Heat are able to do it again. They do it again and win the first game. So give me your thoughts on the start to this series and what you're looking at as the series progresses.
I'm looking at Bam Adebayo to not play like he's a damn bench player. Like, I mean, he had himself 16-8, so he finished the game off with pretty good. I believe when I saw his initial stat line, I believe it was like sometime in the third quarter, he had I think he only had like maybe 6 points with like 3 rebounds and like maybe like 4 assists, something like that. And it's like that's something I'm gonna key in on to see, because in terms of the Knicks, when they have like their big men and those guys are over here snagging boards and fighting on the glass and going about their way of play. Also, on the other side with Miami, I actually saw a post saying that from a Miami Heat insider, or like somebody within the Miami Heat organization, saying that if Jimmy plays like he does, then this is going to be a short series. And I feel that Miami could build a really good case to make another Eastern Conference Finals appearance. But and that's something I feel. But with Bam, I feel Bam is kind of the X factor for them. But obviously Jimmy Butler, a lot of people like to say about Jimmy Butler, he's kind of like the last player to be cut from the same cloth as like MJ and Kobe and all that. Like, I can understand where that argument comes from. And to be honest, it may even be warranted just for how he started off the postseason, and even last year, and just how he's been in the playoffs in years prior. But I am looking forward to, and I'll put my money on Miami, and I have Miami going and beating the Knicks in like 6 games, something like that. It's just to see how the guys around Jimmy are going to play, because Gabe Vincent had himself a good game. He had himself like 20 points. I believe he got hit. I think there was like a 4-point play there where he got hit in the corner and he was fouled, but still hit it. I think that was a 4-point play. I'm not entirely sure, but if those guys around Jimmy can pick it up after Hero went down in the, I believe in the playing game, then Miami has a chance to make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals for sure.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Trey and Matt also said Lowry had a really good game. He did. He Lowry played well. And that team, right? That's such an interesting team, because when you look at the performances, right? When you look at those performances from some of these players, it's like even Kevin Love was making an impact, right? It's such an interesting team in the sense that sometimes it's all Jimmy, and sometimes Jimmy needs to will them to wins. And sometimes you get production out of these guys that are good players, right? Like Gabe Vincent, never not a bad player at all, not a bad player at all. But it's like in a playoff series, Gabe Vincent going out there and getting 20 is not something that you expect every day. And for some of these other role players to step up and really play well, when like to the point you made earlier, Bam didn't. I mean, 16 and 8 is he had a good game, right? But I do agree that Bam needs to have more of an impact. And with that being said, they took game one in a good game by Jimmy, right? It's not like Jimmy, had the 40-pointer, but he played a really good game. They were still able to go out here and get a win. Bam didn't play great. He could have played a little better. So when those two things are happening and you're still able to go out there and get a win, I think that is indicative of something that, the Heat are a little bit deeper than they should be given credit for. And then even like Caleb Martin only had 9, which he's another guy who, if Caleb Martin were to drop 15, 18, I wouldn't be surprised. He has the ability to go out there and play like that. With that being said, they need to actually go out there and have those games. So I agree with your point that they can win this series, but I still really like what the Knicks have going on because of Jalen Brunson. I'm very high on Jalen Brunson. He has had a great series, or excuse me, season as a whole, and Jalen Brunson is a winner, right? That's the one thing that I love about Jalen Brunson, which makes me think this series will at least be a close and competitive one, in the sense that when you have a guy like Jalen Brunson leading your team in like a leadership role, he's a winner and he can kind of prop guys up to play hard and make a big impact. So I will never count out a team that has a player like Jalen Brunson leading the helm. That said, Jalen Brunson also doesn't have the ability of like a Jimmy Butler to go out there and get 40 when you need it badly. So I love the leadership qualities, but yeah.
We got Matt again chiming in. Bam was all right. It'll be harder for him to navigate the lane since the Knicks pack the paint better than Milwaukee. They like that. That's very true in that sense. That's going to be interesting to see going through the series how he goes about adapting to that. I would say in terms of speaking on Brunson, it's the thing I don't like about just looking up the box scores from just Googling it. And like you actually have to go and check out the box scores for yourself, because some of these numbers can be deceiving. Is that he had Brunson on the surface had himself a really good game, 25 points. It took him 23 shots, and then he went 0 of 7 from 3. So that's something I'm going to be interested to see how he goes about that. I don't think he's going to have that bad of a shooting game again, in terms of at least shooting from 3 anyway, because obviously you knock down a couple of those shots, then like it could be arguing that this game goes into overtime. You had RJ, who had himself 26, but he also went 1 of 5 from 3. Josh Hart went 0 of 4 from 3, and then you had Quigley and Grimes both only hit 1 3-pointer out of their combined 7 attempts. So it's going to be interesting to see how those guys continue to shoot the ball in this series. 7 of 34, yeah, it's not going to cut it for taking that many threes, but not taking the bait. But in terms, we've got Trey saying Knicks in 7. It's interesting. I'm like, I can understand the sentiment and I can understand the thought process on it, because Jalen Brunson is a winner. He won while he was in college. Obviously, you probably know a lot more about that than I do. But just seeing how this team was and just the impact that he had throughout the season, to your point, he had himself a really spectacular season. And it's crazy how much, like, if you play good in New York, they will instantly try to paint you into a superstar, or just like you're the talk of the town for sure. But it's going to be interesting. But I feel like Jimmy Butler is going to be finding, like, I feel like this series has the highest potential to go 7 games out of all the second round matchups, including Lakers and Golden State, because just like these guys, like, they're just going to be hitting counterpunch after counterpunch. But it's going to be interesting to see how these guys bounce back after this game 1 loss in the Garden.
Yeah, and to your point about it going 7, I could definitely see it going 7 and it being a close and competitive series. but I also think this series has the highest potential of a team just absolutely playing like absolute crap for 2 games and really falling behind in a series. I could easily see one of these teams getting cold at a higher rate than any of the other teams left in the playoffs. So I do think that's also in play. And to Matt made that point about Bam playing all right, which I definitely agree on. Like I really like Bam as a player. Like his overall skill set. I've always thought he was really good. I Bam is another player that I would like to see take another step in the playoffs. So that's kind of my point behind Bam, where I love him as a player. And I think he's a lot better than he gets credit for throughout the season. And I'd like to see him really take that next step forward in the playoffs and be more of an elite player down the stretch here.
Yeah, for sure. I feel in terms of Bam, like I feel like kind of like the same thing with Aiden, but I feel like Bam provides a lot more in terms of like defensive value and being able to be. He's kind of like that point center for them in a sense that he's able to. He like when he's on, he can stuff the stat sheet and get himself like he can easily get himself a triple double. But just to look at Matt's comment here, Knicks don't shoot elite from anywhere, but New York does a very good job of generating paint touches, assembling offense from there. Had 62 points in the paint yesterday and will shoot better from three. Yeah, so again, that's I heard him say Bam was a third option at best. crazy. But yeah, just to go back to Matt's point, like again, like you can make a case for either one of these teams to take it. And yeah, just to see how they bounce back after game one is gonna be real intriguing because I don't think they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose back-to-back games in the Garden, but I mean, hey,
That'd be
like
something. That'd be something.
that would be something. And we're probably having a different discussion. At least Matt will be having singing a different tune tomorrow if that were to happen.
Yeah. Last thing on this series too. What do you make of Jimmy's ankle? I mean, because if his ankle is not at 100%, I think that makes this series. Yeah. I think that makes this series much different in the sense that he, if he isn't a threat, then those other players on the roster, then it makes it harder for them because now they're the one. They're the first option. They're the guy with all the pressure. And at that point, if Jimmy Butler is not, playing well because of that ankle, that I think that pretty much, I don't want to say completely tears that Heat team down, but I could, if someone else were to say it, I'd probably agree.
I'll say this because it's the same thing that I'll say to Sixers fans after hearing the whole thing about Joel Embiid's knee. Y'all are screwed. Yeah. If Jimmy's hurt, y'all are screwed.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's probably true. Do you want to segue that into that Celtics and 76ers series?
Sure. It's probably going to be a quick discussion with the newfound information, but let's have a go at it.
Yeah, if you just want to go ahead and throw that information out there, and
from the tea leaves, I'm unsure he'll play tomorrow, but game 3 will be Saturday, so he'll have an extended period of rest. He didn't speak to the media today because of getting treatment. He's more honing himself in to have himself another 50-point masterclass.
Yeah, I don't hate that, honestly, because to your point, I don't think you should be giving away games in the playoffs, but the winning back-to-back in the Garden, it would not be an easy task for them. So taking game 2, I don't want to say off because he's hurt, but really being ready for game 3 at home, I think would probably be smart. So I don't know.
If you look at their objective is to take at least one on the road, then they already accomplished that mission. Like I think winning 2 in the Garden will probably just be just icing on the cake. But I think these guys are more trying to hone in to winning their home games at this point now.
Yeah, rolled ankle. Good point. Rolled ankle is better than being in the knee, but you still don't want that rolled ankle.
I get it. Absolutely. But the reason I'm saying that is because in terms of star player not being at 100%, but also guys aren't 100% in the playoffs. But I'm just saying if he's out for an extended period of time, then it's just going to make it that much harder for them. Obviously, it's not the same thing, so I completely understand that. But in terms of the grand sentiment, if Jimmy gets hurt, that Miami team is screwed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then um, going over to this Celtics Sixers series, um, Embiid's not in a great spot, and I wasn't. I've been very high on the Celtics for a while now. I really like this Celtics team. Regardless of what Embiid looks like, I was probably going to end up taking the Celtics here anyways. So, what are your thoughts on that? I know you're a Celtics fan, so I imagine you probably agree. So,
I would say I had this talk with McGinnis when we were doing the brackets for all these, and we were both looking at it for teams being healthy. Obviously, we addressed that.
mhm.
Just look at Matt's comment again. But the fact that if it beats healthy, it's just so disappointing that he gets hurt. It seems like the postseason that he was healthy was like the last time I feel like he was healthy was 2020 when obviously he didn't really have any help. Ben Simmons kind of just like gave up on him. Or actually no, he didn't give up on him. I shouldn't say that. He was hurt. That was when actually Ben was playing good. 2021, that's when the whole Ben Simmons masterclass, if you want to put it that way, happened with Trae Young. And then, but it just seems like the last couple of postseasons, it's been so. Oh man, that one is going to stay up there. I'm gonna keep that up for the entirety of this segment. But yeah. So in terms of just the Sixers and Joel, the fact that Joel is compromised, I could easily see this being going 5 games, 5 games. But and the reason for it is, and I was talking about this with Matt in terms of, I believe it was Matt that I was speaking with about James Harden. If they got Harden maybe a couple seasons earlier, this team would be a lot more of a threat. I've been saying this ever since I've been here about Philadelphia. Is that people love to put Philadelphia in that conversation for those guys to get over the hump and make an NBA Finals. Those guys haven't shown me anything ever since Joel Embiid has been in the league in terms of like their best chance was off a godsend of a shot by Kawhi Leonard. That was their best shot to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, and funny enough, Jimmy Butler was on that team too. So that says a lot about how that organization was being ran. I think. But I'm willing to make a wager on it if necessary. You know what? Betting man, I like it. But yeah, just the fact that they're compromised. I feel like Boston, for whatever reason, when Boston this season plays below 500 teams or what looks to be below 500 teams, like when the Hawks didn't have Murray and obviously they weren't at 100% strength, they get smoked. Well, not smoked, but they lose that game. And just the fact that this might even go if it's understanding that history of them not playing good against bad teams. This might even go 6 or 7 games, you know. But I'm saying, in all seriousness, I feel like these guys have to just take care of business. And Tatum and Brown showed me something when they were closing out the Hawks. So if they come out and play like that, and just the fact that these guys they're more of a 1A, 1B. And I said that Jaylen Brown is that guy. You give that guy just to put it bluntly, you give that guy the fucking ball when he's feeling. You give that fucking guy the ball. And he's showing more and more why you don't just look at, oh, it's Tatum's team and then oh, Brown's good too. No, Brown's fucking amazing and he deserves all his fucking flowers. That's just more just to put it bluntly and put it simple. I know I don't cuss as much on the regular, but I've been adamant. This is one of the first people. This is one of the first players that I can arguably say that I've been following him and Tatum their entire careers now. So it's cool to be able to grow up and see these guys develop into what people didn't see them to be when they first initially came into the league. Hey, you know what? And then another thing is Ime Udoka tried to get him traded too. Like, and the thing is, it makes it that much better to prove them wrong, and he's gonna eventually get a multi-million-dollar contract for 4 or 5 years whenever he's eligible. I'm hoping it's with the Celtics, but I just feel like Tatum and Brown, those guys are just they're the best duo in the NBA, and I feel that when they see that the Sixers are hurt and being compromised, you got to put them down quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I agree with Matt's point here about Celtics in 5. I think they can squeeze out a win here. Um, you know, uh, you can also so yeah, they'd have to get really hot from the three to really, really have a chance, and I don't really see that happening unless James Harden finds a time machine and can get 4 years younger, maybe, which that's not going to happen. But with that being said, I really like the Celtics team. The point you made about I like Tatum and Brown as well, and I also like the depth here. Right, this is a deep roster. Robert Williams is a really really good player who doesn't get enough credit.
Well, absolutely.
So yeah, I think this is a deep team, a really good team, and I've liked them for a long time. So I'll like the Celtics team in this series against the Sixers, who I don't really think are. I don't want to say I don't think the Sixers are on the same tier as the Bucks were, which the Bucks lost, so obviously that doesn't look great. But I don't think they were in the same tier as the Bucks or the Celtics. So I think the Celtics will kind of show um, why they are being talked about as championship contenders and why the Sixers were not.
Uh, Actually, I was told he gets too much credit. Time Lord, not that important according to then I feel, to me, in terms of watching the games, like the Celtics needed someone like I mean, yeah, because if you put him for a full like 30, 35 minutes, his knees might explode mad. So I don't oppose your argument there. But in terms of just talking about Rob Williams for a second, the fact that he is just like I want to say he's the glue guy, because Marcus Smart is kind of like that guy who kind of is like the leader of that team in a sense. He's been there the longest, even though he still hasn't even clipped 30 yet, and like he's been there even when the Celtics were still in some sort of a rebuild in like the mid 2010s. But in terms of Rob Will, what he does for that team, it just sucks that his knees, like especially last year, his knees were given like kind of just like playing games with him, it seems like. But ow. I mean, in terms of, just to pretty much go to my point, the fact that he's able to just get those hustle plays, and he's able to play on the weak side of the dunker spot and be able to snag off from the rebound and put it back up and in. He doesn't have to rely brutally on force, but the fact that he's super athletic, and when he's on the floor and healthy, like he can wreak havoc on the floor in terms of the boards and being able to push the pace a little bit, obviously grab rebounds, like I said, and be able to block shots and just play really, really good defense and be that option that the Celtics were looking for when they drafted him as a big man who can do all those things. I feel that there's going to come a time where, and to be honest, I feel like the Celtics would be beneficial for them to get a guy, another quality big man in the future, so they don't have to rely on giving Rob all those heavy minutes. Even though I feel like there's just a time, like you kind of know what you're going to get out of him. But if you're going to have to Matt's point, if his knees maybe compromised if you play him for too long, then it would probably be nice to have a quality big man behind him. But yeah, to just talking about Matt's comment here, PJ Tucker is the perfect player for Time to play off of whenever they're on the floor together. As much as I love PJ, teams leave him wide open. Keep an eye on that tonight. That's interesting, because just I feel PJ is like, I haven't watched too many Sixers games, and I know the only thing I really can understand about PJ Tucker is that 3-and-D guy who can knock down some corner threes for sure. So I guess it's more, if the Celtics do end up going with that kind of game plan, they're baking on PJ Tucker to beat him out of the corner. But even then, it seems like, at least from the games that I've seen, it's that PJ is the one to get hot, obviously. But yeah, just I love what Rob Will brings to the table, and also Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon. Those guys shouldn't be understated either. Those guys have been such great additions, especially Derek White, who kind of is coming into his own this year, and he's kind of proven to be one of the better players on that team. And like, he's definitely that guy who kind of was holding down the fort when like Tatum or Brown was out for that night. So definitely, just really, I'm just so happy to see how good this team is, and Boston will do what Milwaukee did to Green. If PJ Tucker knocks down like 8 or 9 threes because of that happening, I can't even be mad at it. I can't even be mad at it. Just like Milwaukee fans can't be mad at it either. But yeah, it's just so fun to watch this team when these guys are actually playing like they want to win the damn championship instead of
Mhm.
playing not to lose a game.
Yeah, and the other point that I'll make off that, and as far as Robert Williams goes, and his like however many minutes you want to play him, having Horford there right now helps that because you can play with the lineups a lot in Boston. Whether you want to run Horford and Williams at a 4 and a 5, um, and then you can run Tatum at the 3 and Brown at the 2, and then whoever you want to run at point, whether Smart's in, whether Brogdon's in, whoever's in at the point, whoever you want, whether it's Derek White, whoever. But you can also run smaller with Horford or Williams on the bench and throw Tatum up at the 4 and throw an extra guard in there in the lineup. So I do like that positional versatility there, and that helps them kind of play with Time Lord's minutes because they can go small, keep him off the floor at times as well. And having Horford there kind of helps ease the load on him, even if Horford isn't like the best player at this stage of his career, he can still do some good things and keep some minutes off of Robert Williams. So I like that versatility, and I think that helps Boston a lot too. So
Yeah, I would say just like kind of one of my final things on this series with in terms of James Harden, obviously there's going to be the reliance on him. He's getting paid a lot of money to be a Sixer, and even though he did take a pay cut to go into the season, um, again, I can't get over the fact that he's not that player that a lot of people like. The name value for people is like, oh, that's James Harden. That's James Harden. I just don't think he's that guy anymore to give you, or he doesn't have like the highest potential anymore to get you that 40-point triple double and be able to put your team in the best position to win.
mm-hmm.
I feel that and honestly, I feel if they get bounced out in this series, and I feel like it's more and more, it's becoming more and more of a formality that Harden may find his way back to Houston in one way or another. It just seems like I believe it was Matt when I talked to him. He said like where there's smoke, there's fire, and I can't I just don't see Harden being that one guy because he can do it against Brooklyn Nets like we saw in that series, I believe, when they closed them out. But against this Boston team, I don't think that's gonna fly. But just looking at Matt's quote, Matt's comment here, excuse me. Boston's going small is probably their best route, even if B-ball Paul, even if it's B-ball Paul instead of Embiid for the first couple of games. But I don't the idea of going big either when PJ and Paul are both on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm just excited to see these guys go at it. Obviously, I'm more anticipating this more to be maybe the easier series to call. It just depends how we see with Embiid, but I feel even with Embiid there, I still would have had taken the Celtics anyway.
Yep.
I don't hate the idea. Okay.
That's why Boston's so good because they can play big or small and play very well at it either way. So
yeah,
that's one of the reasons I like Boston.
My last thing, just going back to a comment that Trey said about talking about Brad Stevens and just like how like the Celtics wanted to we're looking to trade Brown, or at least like there were the rumblings to trade Brown for Durant. I agree with you there, Trey, that I feel like but that's again just to go back to speaking on Brown and him pretty much showing them like, hey, like there was a like I'm giving you every reason you guys need to pay me my money, and I'm gonna, and hopefully it ends up culminating in a championship. It's making them look dumber and dumber. And again, I feel them just bringing in Malcolm Brogdon, it made like I don't think that should be warranted for executive of the year. So I understand your point of view because obviously people, it's kind of like the same thing with like MVP and stuff like that. I feel like also give him the he's slated to come back in the postseason. So I'm excited to see Gallo, even though he may not be exactly what people are anticipating, at least obviously coming back from an ACL injury. But no, but yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from there. So but yeah, I'm just happy that Brown is proving them wrong day in and day out. Oh, absolutely. He better like I'm anticipating him to get a fucking bag for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So we're at an hour 10 here. We ran through all the postseason games. So unless you have anything else that you want to throw out there, I'm all good.
I'm just hey Trey. I just want to get your thoughts on the Bruins loss last night. If you can just chime in real quick before we get out of here. I don't watch a whole lot of hockey. I watched that shit and I was disappointed.
Yeah, and as far as hockey goes, I mean, that's the one thing that hockey is always exciting. Like for better or worse, hockey is exciting, and the fact that we're seeing yeah,
I spoke with James about it. He said he's all good. And I mean, hey,
no,
I'm not the biggest NFL guy anyway, but it. I mean, if you want to chime in, go ahead.
yeah. As far as the NFL draft goes, that could be a whole nother hour in itself, right?
Just with you, you can just carry me. I'll just be fascinated, being like, I have like I'm trying like because again I'm still NFL casual. I'm trying to find my way in it. It's just so many players and so many positions you
Yeah.
gotta figure out. My goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot to get into. I'll start with the elephant in the room because I'm a Lions fan, and the Lions did not have a good day. The Lions did not have a good day. We'll after my NFL draft rant, we'll circle back to the Bruins comment here. Um, as far as NFL draft goes, I did not like the Lions draft at all. I could go on a 25-minute rant of about positional value. Don't take a running back at 12. Don't take a bad linebacker at 18. And I've heard so many people talk about Jack Campbell being a good player. I've seen people compare him to Luke Kuechly. Those people are not very smart. I'll say that. Jack Campbell is not the type of linebacker that I would want on my NFL team in 2023. I prefer Drew Sanders and Trenton Simpson both over him. And we took him in 18, and Sanders and Simpson got taken at the end of the second and started the third. So don't waste a first-round pick on a dude when you can get someone better in the second or the third. I loved the Brian Branch pick. Obviously, trading up wasn't ideal, but with that being said, I do like Brian Branch in that secondary, some versatility. Didn't like the Broderick Jones pick. And that's whatever, they traded up for it. Hendon Hooker, I don't hate, because if you get Jared Goff's contract off the books and can start Hendon Hooker, good move for a third round pick. And if you fail on that, you're losing out on a third round pick, which is not ideal, but could be worse. I like the risk reward there, and can't believe they took Broderick Jones over Keely Ringo when you need an outside corner. So I'll say that about the Lions draft. And I talked a lot about the Lions draft in the NFL chat and wasn't very happy about it over the weekend. Now, really like the Eagles drafts. Who else did I like? Really like the Cardinals draft.
What
We
about the
talked about
Pats? I heard the Pats had himself a decent draft.
the Pats. I honestly don't know what they did too much in the second and third. I love their first round pick.
Yeah, it was a
Christian
corner,
Gonzalez.
wasn't it?
Yeah, Gonzalez was probably my favorite pick of the first round. I wanted the Lions in terms of like getting a good player in a good spot. He probably should have been a top 10 pick. And yeah, it's crazy. Not even Bijan. And you draft a dude who you want him to be Swift, and then you trade Swift for a fourth rounder. Doesn't make any sense. Christian Gonzalez at 17. That awesome pick for the Pats there. I think they won the first. They're one of the winners of the first round. I want to say they drafted Keon White, which I don't love in the second round, but I think they hit in the first round, which is the most important. So I thought Gonzalez was going to go 8 to the Raiders. And then I was like, or excuse me, 7 to the Raiders. And I thought he had potential 8 to the Falcons. And then you see, there aren't very many cornerback needy teams. Lions take a running back when they could have taken him at 12. So he keeps falling. Washington takes Forbes, which I'm not a big Forbes guy. He's way, way too small, in my opinion. I think his ball skills are a little bit overrated too. So I hate the Forbes pick. Now I'm really just rambling here and thinking, but last thing I'll say on the NFL draft, I think the Cardinals had a great draft. What they did, trading down from 3 to 12, they got a haul to get to 12. They gave up pick 34 to get to and some late rounders in there kind of swayed it in their favor too. So they were able to get back up to 6. Got no lineman. That was pretty good. So I thought the Cardinals had a really good draft at adding some good players while stacking picks for next year. So those are some of the teams I'd liked from their NFL draft. And that's my NFL draft rate.
I'll at least ask this question as to wrap
Yeah.
that up. In terms of NFL drafting, like what do you prioritize, or what, like if I'm starting a team, what's something you would prioritize for like positional value in it? Because obviously I saw a lot of quarterbacks go in the first round from what I saw.
Yeah. So as far as quarterback goes, it's draft good ones as high as possible. And you got to be able to weed out which ones are bad, because sometimes there's quarterbacks who go high because they're quarterbacks and they have no business going high. So you got to kind of play. You have to be good enough at scouting to know who should be going early as a quarterback, and then once you kind of find that guy, you take him early, and then from there. I like the idea. Edge, I think, is the best position to draft first round. If you can get an impact edge rusher, D lineman in the first round, that's always a positive. Offensive tackle, big position there. Wide receiver, cornerback, those are probably my top positions in the first round, at least at the top of it. And then once you get down to the more bottom portion of the first round, I don't hate going, a really high impact interior offensive lineman, like a Osiris Torrance. I wouldn't have hated in the first round, kind of depending on how the board falls. I don't hate safety in the first round if you know they're going to be good. I hate running back in the first round. Well, I will say the running back in the first round, I don't hate in like late 20s, early 30s, just so you can get the 5th round option on them. I don't think is bad. I hate linebacker in the first round, and I hate tight end in the first round too. No tight ends in the first round. You go through and look at all the top tight ends in the league. Rarely are they first round picks. It's kind of crazy the amount of first round picks, tight ends that are busts in comparison to, yep, I agree with that. Yeah. If you have a quarterback, then you start. I'm big in the O line and D line early, but yeah, that's a good. You also have to go off the talent available. You don't draft an edge rusher just because they're an edge rusher if they're bad. You can get a good interior offensive lineman even if it's not as high of a value position. But yeah,
Okay.
Little bit of a rant there, but
hey, all good. Hey, Trey wanted you to talk about some NFL draft. There you go, you got it. Just to circle back to talking about the just NHL. Obviously, I'm not the biggest NHL guy. I'm not sure if you were, but I know Trey is, so make sure to ask him about it. For those who don't know, maybe you guys just haven't been keeping up. But yeah, so the Boston Bruins had the greatest record in regular season history. I believe 65 wins, and then they lose in Game 7 in overtime to the I believe it was like the Panthers, or I believe that Florida Panthers or something like that. And yeah, so it's just interesting to see, because again, I rarely ever watch hockey, but then just to go back to your point saying that like playoff hockey is such a different animal, because it was my first time really like watching a hockey game like that. And I was watching from maybe like third period into overtime, and it was like I was like my heart was racing, even though like I really didn't like, obviously like I was just gonna root with like the hometown team really, but obviously because being from that area and all that, but also like again it's like, even though like I just felt like I've been watching this team like the entire season, just because like how I was going, like there's no way you guys just give up a goal like that and all. So but yeah, like for me anyway, it's sucks, because I even told you before we even hopped on here. It's that, imagine if Golden State didn't even make the finals in 2016 when they went 73-9, and they get smoked by the Pelicans in Game 7 of the first round. That's just not a good look. But I mean, give me your thoughts of just hearing that, being the best regular season team of all time and losing in the first round.
yeah, absolutely insane. And I wish I knew more about hockey. I just never been the sport for me. But this year started to dabble in a little bit, so we'll see how that goes. But we're starting to get into hockey a little bit more. But the idea of playing a goalie 6 games in a row and then putting him on the bench for Game 7 is crazy. I don't know all the context behind that. but I don't know how that is like. Even like I just can't really wrap my head around the idea of having your like star goalie on the bench for a game 7. Like if you're worried if you don't want to play 7 games in a row, then don't start him in game 6 or game 5. I know they're probably trying to be aggressive and win that game, but also, you know, maybe don't play him game 3 then. So
Yeah,
I,
it's like
I don't know all the details there, so I don't want to go too far in depth on when you should have started them and when you should have sat them. But
yeah.
you can you're allowed to rotate goalies before game 7. Game 6, you don't have they don't force you to switch up goalies in game 7. So
I mean, I guess like hearing it from like that point of view, like just seeing what like Trey has said about this team, like there was some glaring like just mistakes or just missteps that
mhm.
that were had that they shouldn't have lost the series. But also, I feel that like at least from like my limited knowledge about the sport is that upsets are pretty common for like at least in playoff hockey, and I feel like that's what makes it so fun because it's kind of like the same thing with me and like just with baseball. I know I continuously say this with baseball. Postseason baseball is so fun because of the unpredictability of it. Because
Mhm.
it really doesn't matter in terms of like once you guys are playing each other, it can go either way. To be honest, but no, but yeah, definitely may try to like after seeing that game 7, even though the Bruins lost, I still may try to catch a couple more games before the postseason's over because I did have a good time even though like the team I was rooting for anyway lost.
Yeah, that's facts. I mean, as far as like my hockey watching goes, I don't watch as much as I'd like to, and every time I watch it, I have a good time as long as the game's close. Sometimes hockey games aren't close, and it's like, all right, turn this shit off. But close hockey games are. I don't want to
Edge of
say
your
as
seat stuff.
yeah, I don't want to say as fun as it gets, but close hockey game is a good TV, good TV.
Oh,
Oh, all right. Shout out, Matt. That's good. That's good info to have because I would not have known that. So
shout out Matt and Trey for sticking with
yeah,
us this entire time. Appreciate the both of y'all.
yeah. Shout out for the comments.
Big
Ooh,
bro. I better
ooh.
I better see a couple of fights then. I'm not getting my money's worth if I don't see somebody get their teeth knocked out. But
Yeah, and shout out to Matt and Trey for hanging around in the comments for pretty much on the majority of the episode. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys chiming in. And Jeremiah, unless you have anything else, 8 p.m. Eastern, also good information. Look at
8
this,
p.m. Eastern, Game 7 tonight for NHL.
doing a
I would
job
like to
for us.
just say my last tidbit for the show is that I'm happy I got my first win. So on fantasy anyway, the guys actually started not playing like shit this past week. So hopefully that's a change in the right direction. But yeah, that's all. That's it for me.
Yeah, Trey, and make sure to go check out Trey's draft grades as well. So anyone who wants some more intel on the NFL draft, that's a good spot to figure out if your team did good, if your team did bad. That is the place to figure that out. So I'm interested to see what Trey has to say about the Lions. I have a silly suspicion it won't be good, and I have a silly suspicion I know what the grade is, but we'll have to wait and see for when the post comes out. So, all right, Jeremiah. It's been a good time.
It's been fun.
It's been fun. And for anyone watching out there, make sure to tune in.
May the best team win, Matt.
Ooh.
I'll go. I don't care. I got my first win. You can't knock me off this cloud just yet.
That's right. That's right. And the Vendetta Sports Media Daily Show will be back tomorrow. So make sure to
Matt will
tune
be in
in.
the chair.
Matt will be in the chair. That means you have to watch. That means you have to watch.
Absolutely.
All right. We will catch you guys later.